I saw the language single page application, if that's the correct terminology.
The SPA.
And is every, I know it's not, so that doesn't make, so if we wanted multiple pages, how would we get to that? I think that's where I'm kind of confused at.
Are you intentionally reading the outline in advance for tonight and asking questions to cue me up?
No, Mel had posted the terminology. So I don't know if I looked on the wrong day's outline for the terminology, but I saw that and then I saw it in like somewhere else. So I was like, let me just ask about that.
Yes. So tonight we are going to cover React Router and how we can set up routes to have our React be effectively multiple pages.
Thank you.
So just to make sure I understood that, what you mean by that is all right, so that, but just scratch that. I have a question. So so I already had started my capstone before with information. So how do I have to start over and put that information on React? Or
yeah, so you will have to what we consider port your code over from regular HTML into React. It is not an easy one-for-one process. For the most part, you can copy and paste things over, but you will have to work on moving things over, renaming class to class name, doing that kind of stuff. With that said, doing your capstone in React is totally optional. We find it's about a 50-50 ratio. Half the students say, hey, I really want the React experience. React makes sense to me. I want to do my capstone in it. The other half of students say, like, React is cool and all, but like I've already started on my capstone. I'm not working with a ton of data. I just want to stick to what I already have going on. So React is optional for your capstone, but you would have to start porting it over and breaking things out into components if you want to move what you already have into a React app or project.
yeah, so I just have like them side by side. I'm not gonna show today, but I just want to talk. I have them side by side. So I have my JavaScript, and then I just made a new React app in the React folder, and I'm just trying to like translate it over into that. But that's it so far. And I feel like I'm doing okay, knowing that we have that week, and I'm gonna like blow through everything, and I should be able to catch up on everything.
Awesome. So here's who I have down for presenting tonight. And this is based off of, so let me read the list of people who have booked one-on-ones with me. If you booked a one-on-one but still want to present tonight, just come off mute and let me know. But who I have scheduled for one-on-one is Stephanie, Zach, Tiffany, Shranjay, and Larry. Plus Wayne and Shantina. Is there anyone on that list who still wants to present tonight?
I'll present. I just scheduled so I can meet with you, but I said I'm going to present even though I'm not that far.
Cool, thank you. Anyone else scheduled for a one-on-one but does want to present tonight?
I booked the one-on-one as well.
Cool, but do you want to present, Chaz?
No, not tonight.
Oh, okay.
Wait, I was confused. When we said Thursday, we were talking about today, Thursday?
Today, Thursday, yes.
I said the same thing.
I thought we were talking, no
I
funny. When you were saying Thursday, I really thought you were talking about next week, Thursday. Like we were going to meet in person and meet Thursday in person. Max, I'm going to schedule a one-on-one.
You better schedule fast. And
okay, I'm doing it now.
That goes for you too, Chaz. I do not see an appointment with you. Are you sure you scheduled?
Yeah, I just scheduled it. It's for next week. I think
now I see you. Okay.
Can I make sure? I feel like I booked too.
You're on the list, Nicole, so I will take you off. So the only people that I do not have, the people that I do have presenting tonight are Doug, Larry, Christy, and Scadia.
All right, Max, can I present too?
Yep.
All right, appreciate it. Yeah.
Okay, was that enough people that you needed, like for the time that you wanted to present?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it doesn't matter to me. The more time that we have, to me, it doesn't matter if you want to do it in person. I'm sorry, during a one-on-one, or if you want to do it in front of class, right? I think doing it in front of class is great for experience presenting, but it is also just fine to do it one-on-one, right? I just need a check-in to see how you guys are doing. So I am going to shuffle the names in. So I've got Doug, Christy, Scadia. Did you say you were booking with me?
Yes, I'm booking with you. Don't shuffle my name. I'm sorry.
All right. So presenting tonight, I've got Doug, Christy, Larry, and Corey. Does that sound right?
Yeah, for me, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Max, you said for the presentations that like basically these were just kind of like for you just to see what we have going on, and then we can get like feedback on like what to do next and stuff, right?
Excuse me. Yeah, super laid back, nothing to panic about. You don't need slides, you don't need anything. Just a chance to kind of share with the class what you've gotten done, what you're doing next, and where you think you're roadblocked. Okay.
All right, thank you.
So first random name is, oh, stupid random name generator. We're gonna start with Doug. You want to kick us off?
Okay. I'm not sure where to start.
And just share your screen, kind of talk us through what you've gotten done, what you're working on next.
Okay. So I started by doing what you had shown us with the early on the console project for the car dashboard design, and sort of just asking myself lots of questions and just making a big long list of questions and answers, and just to try to get an idea of what I was going to include in the app. And then from there, I had a pretty good list, and I thought, okay, let me start making a diagram. And as you can see by this, is like as soon as I started, I was like, oh wait, but then if I click on this, I got to do something over here. And then if I click on that, I got to do something over here. So I went back to just like pencil and paper and drew a lot of diagrams. And then I ended up with this, which still wasn't final, but I felt like all the ideas I wanted to include were sort of included in these two screens. So I was thinking it'd be a main screen that shows the item you're shopping for, a map of the store that you're in, where the items are, the path that you need to follow, how many items you've already crossed off your list, how many you have left to go, then a zoom in on the map, zoom out from the map, and a list button, which would, the list would take you over here where you would see your grocery list, and you click on an item and it would pop open a little sub menu where you could either disable the item, meaning you're not shopping for it today. You could check it, which would cross it off, or you could take it off the list altogether. And then I figured, I made a plus button thinking like, okay, to add a new item. But then I thought, well, you're going to have to search because your item has to be in the inventory of the store you're shopping at. So based on that, I dove in and started putting together just putting together some HTML and CSS and JavaScript. So this is what I have on the main screen so far. It's just the food item. This is where the map would go, plus, minus, and list. And the list takes you over to a list of items, which you can click on them and say, make it, if you make something active, it puts it up at the top of the list. someone was talking about lists recently, and they're saying when you cross it off, move it to the bottom. So I thought that was a good idea. And then you can hide your inactive items so that you're only looking at what's on your current list while you're shopping. And then if you go to search, well, these are things I've typed in recently. So you say milk, it shows you from the, so I'm not connected to any database or anything, but I made a, where is it, dummy data. For data, no, here we go. Like an inventory list. So I just have a bunch of items that have, each one is an object. They're all in an array, and each object has a name of what the grocery item is, and then an XY location in the store. So that's where it's fine. I type in milk and it goes through the names of all the items and it finds milk. So it gives me an item that matches that. Like if I say, I think the only one that will return more than one item is cheese. Oh, I thought I had cheddar cheese as well. But anyhow, you click the item and it puts it on your list if it's not already there. And I mean, that's what I got so far, except for trying to make the map work, which is a whole separate project. Am I going over time?
No, you're fine. Go ahead and show this off too, because I think this is the impressive part. Although I want to caveat this with Doug has been working on, had a version of this Pathfinder working from before the cohort even started. So let me just caveat
years
that.
ago, when I used to build Flash games, I had for a game, I had to work out a pathfinding algorithm to get like from one tile to another around obstacles. And I was like, I think I remember how I did that. So I rebuilt it with JavaScript. But so here, let me just go to that. Sorry, give me a second. So this I just have an image in the background. That's just an image that I grabbed off the internet of a grocery store. And I'm able to superimpose a grid. These are just a whole bunch of divs. And I just did the thing, you know, a loop for a column and then a loop for a row. So it just makes a big grid of squares. And then this turns on the actual buttons. So if you click in one spot, it'll find you the path to another spot. And if you make obstacles, oops, then you go from one spot to another, it'll go around the obstacles. So then I said, okay, well, let me start. So I took this map and I started filling in obstacles to kind of match that image, which is this. So this is the store with all the obstacles mapped out. So if you click and then click somewhere else, it'll call me a liar. All right. So obviously I have some more work to do. This was working 10 minutes ago.
As with all demos, this is a very common thing. I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Okay, well, let me just see if I can do the waypoints at least. So if you pick a bunch of spots where the groceries are, say I got to get something out of frozen foods, pick up some milk and cheese. So just say each of these red dots is a grocery item. Then draw a path. What did I just, So something I must have just turned off. It's not drawing the paths now. But so that I'm working on this to work out the pathfinding, which I'm discovering is a lot. There's a lot more to it than I imagined. So I'm not sure how accurate it's going to be like the actual shortest path through the store, but it will be a path.
Yeah, and Nicole made a comment that I really resonate with. It says MVP, right? Minimum viable product. I know I've seen your code working, Doug, to a certain degree where it is finding a path. And I think that the important thing that we want to remember about our capstone here is our capstone is not about the project. It is about the journey that we went on to get this project working, right? So when you're presenting at graduation, this is not about, hey, I made this whole thing. It's, hey, I learned all of these things as I was making my capstone, right? And so one of those things that you can touch on is, hey, what happened along the way? Oh, I found out about this problem called the traveling salesman, right? And how GPS was invented. And I started working on my pathfinding and being able to pull in other things, right? So it is all about that journey and documenting that, and that minimum viable product, right? Talking about getting that out. And yes, to your points, most valuable player, most valuable programmer, minimum viable product, whatever you want to go for there, all MVPs. So awesome work, Doug.
Thank you.
All right, Corey, you're up next.
All right, 1 second. Let me share this. All right, so so I did like it's basically just a website for like skate products. A little bit about the journey on it just before I ask any like serious questions. When I started this, I really kind of just picked up on what we learned from like the beginning of the class. Obviously, I kind of got behind a little bit, so I kind of used just what I could, and I used a little bit of HTML and CSS just to throw this together, to add like a little bit of like creative aspects to it. I had to kind of like just step out the box and like learn how to do simple stuff like turn videos into like GIF or GIF images, however you say it. Yeah, so some things I learned HTML wise doing this was like, for example, to add this right here, I had to obviously add the logo and stuff and whatnot, but I learned how to link, create like a link using a href to link it to like a second page. So say you make like, you got your main page and you want to click on it to go to a second page. I learned how to use like an href to do that. And so here's the href right here, going to index 2, which would be the second page. So you click on that, and then it just shows some like, so what I got so far. This is a little custom skateboard I did, which I did have to learn like to use a little bit of Photoshop. Mind you, this is garbage right here. It's kind of ugly, but I just wanted to have something to show.
Awesome. So what are next steps?
So the next steps are like just in completing this, or
Yeah, what's your end vision? What do you still have to do on it? Where are you thinking you're headed next?
So I want to obviously add on to more of the site. You could tell like the site is kind of stale. So like, once I get into JavaScript, just picking up on some of the things we may have learned or whatever, when I start adding more to it, I'll obviously be able to implement that to it. Yeah, this was just kind of like a mock-up of what I had so far, but I want to turn it into like a full website that at least uses, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. If I can, somehow use React with it, then I'll try to find a way to use it for that.
So
But
you're gonna fail with those objectives unless you have your end goal in mind here. And so the end goal in mind, just something as simple as, hey, I've got the shopping cart up there, right? So I want to
Yeah.
be able to click on that skateboard, get more details about the skateboard, and add that to a shopping cart. Okay, now you're talking about the JavaScript of keeping track of what items are in the cart. You're talking
Okay.
about maintaining an image library. You're talking about possibly even having a server for maintaining what products are there, right? So what
Yeah.
you want to be thinking about here is, what do I want this to be in the end? And that's where wireframing is going to be really helpful, right? Okay, when I click on that shopping cart image, what happens? What page needs to show up? Okay, well, when I'm on a product page, how do I click an add to cart button? And then where does it take me? So wireframing those out is going to be super helpful in making sure that you're meeting all of the requirements of the capstone, which is that full stack app, right? Which is having something coming from the database, using an API that we've built ourselves, and then also having that information show up on the front end.
Okay.
So that would be next steps for me. Is you're already setting up this notion of e-commerce, right? And this notion of being able to look at products and add those products to the cart. So that's where you want to start thinking about functionality, right? Figuring out, where do I go from here? Hey, if I need to have a cart, I need some ability to add things to the cart, right? So thinking through what those buttons are, and getting them added to this page is going to set you up really well for next steps.
Okay. Yeah, I that's kind of like where I did have a question for, actually, because I was confused on adding like a price tag and stuff. So I didn't know how we were supposed to, ask those questions yet. But yeah, I have like millions of questions though. But yeah, that's definitely the main goal. Just try to get like a full site up.
Yeah, and that's what one-on-ones are really great for, right? So just schedule a one-on-one with me, come in with your list of questions, and we'll start knocking through them.
Okay, cool. Can I just ask one before we switch over and stuff? Or okay, so hold on. When I do add that, okay, the price thing, for example, when I do add that, is that something like that was covered in the beginning, or?
So we didn't really do an e-commerce project, so there's not much that we can say. I can't just like point you out a specific day and say, here's where you add it. But what you need to be thinking about is like, where's my data coming from and how can I make multiple products show up on the page? So where you want to draw some inspiration for that is like, go on Amazon, right? Or go on wherever you shop online and see how they have their product pages set up and their cart set up. And that's what you're going to want to model it after.
Okay. Cool. And then also, I had one more question. I lost my train of thought. Okay, I'll get back to you on that. I lost my train of thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mel made a great point. He said, I would think about adding a product card template for your products that will show the price.
A product
so,
card template?
Yeah, so you wanna look at, one, the page that is showing all of your products, two, the page that is showing the detailed information about that product itself, and then three, the shopping cart as well.
Okay, I'm writing this stuff down. Last thing, so for example, with these right here, should we be using columns to set up like each item? Or
if you want it to show up in a grid, yes.
Okay, write that down too.
All right, Christy,
cool.
You are up next.
Okay, so let me see, where is the screen I want to share? Just 1 second. All right, let me see. I got two things. Okay, I'm gonna show this first. Because I had a meeting with What are we seeing? What do we see? Oh, that's not.
We see blackness, Christy.
Okay, wait a minute. My listen, my stop share. My thing got funny looking. Let's see, what am I trying to do? I didn't click share.
You started the share, but it's like just sharing a black screen. It's not actually sharing the window. Is it just me? Does anyone else see Christy's window?
It might be.
Okay.
It's not me. I'm sure it is. Oh, okay. You know what? Let's see. Let's try this.
My Zoom is glitching, but I just saw a black screen as well.
All right, we're gonna try this again. All right. So
There you go.
you see this? Okay, so this is
Christy, this is looking a little egotistical right now. I just have to warn you.
Oh, it is. It's very egotistical. So listen, so what it is I wanted it to be like Oprah's favorite things. I'm toggling between Christy's favorite things like Oprah, or to do like a foodie type of thing, like maybe so I wanted to show you this because so you see I've been on my own trying to go. So this is Tiffany's. So see how it says disallow, then it says API search. So what I was trying to do was to see if I could like the New York Times app, if I could call in certain things and then be able to bring the data in to show the information, because I didn't want to just bring in the web page. So I've been researching that and so I didn't find, so this one was there was like this another item, and I searched the API and then I got this. So see where I searched the API, and then I didn't get too far with that one. But these are the things like I was trying to pull in, because I noticed with the New York Times app, everything connected back to Amazon. So that's the thing. That's the piece that I need to figure out as far as trying to locate the APIs for the things. Or if I decide to do restaurants, locating an API maybe for like their menu, and so that I can pull in the information or the details about what it is that I like at that restaurant.
So Christy, at the end of class, remind me to show you the network tab. We are going to, I'll tack that on to the end of class tonight, because I think it will be helpful for everyone to see. But we can actually go on the Tiffany website and see what API calls are happening and how that data is flowing. Oftentimes we can't use the API that Tiffany has built. We have to use what is called a web scraper. But we can look at that network tab and kind of peek into how that data is flowing and go from there. Do you have anything? Can you go back to your what you've built out already?
So yes, so here's this. So I just did this because what I want is I'm just trying to decide if I was thinking about having this be a button, but I might have it be a card. I haven't I'm not sure yet, but I showed you guys this before where I made it. I did at least made it so that if it was on what am I trying to say?
On a mobile device that would be responsive.
Thank you. Yes.
So what are your next steps?
So my next steps are to finish Codecademy and figure out a better understanding of JavaScript first. Then React to get some. I'm just trying to, I feel like the JavaScript is a missing piece. That's why I'm going so hard with it. Like I'm trying to do so many hours of that every day. And then next week I should be able to finish it. So I'm really trying to go hard and make sure that I get this JavaScript, because that has been a thorn in my side.
Awesome.
And so and then narrow down, can you guys see this?
Yep.
Okay, narrow down which one I want to do, because I thought about, I mean, I still am interested in the bike thing, but I wanted to do something that I thought would be interesting. And so yeah.
Now's the time to lock in, right? Or within the next couple weeks, I would say. We're running out of time to change ideas, but we're not quite there yet. What I would be locking into, though, is like, for example, if you run with the favorite things idea, figuring out what the additional pages are. Okay, if I've got my 15 favorite things, when I click on one of them, I want to be taken to a page, just like we did for our capstone, for our portfolio site, right? So that when we click on one of the projects that we've done, it pulls up the project page and has more details about it.
Right.
That's where you would want to get to for your favorite things idea, right? Of saying, hey, when I click on one of those favorite things, maybe I go to a product page with more information on it, and I can link to wherever you can buy it. And who knows, maybe I even do an API call where I can show like related items at Tiffany. That's where that's where we need to be thinking, right? For next steps is, hey, that grid is great, and that's a great starting point, but how do I add additional pages onto that? Where do I go from there?
Right. And so that was the thing with me being stuck in my mind with the whole JavaScript thing. I think the favorite things, even because the favorite things and food all kind of those two coincide. So it could be, or maybe like some kind of items that I like that, you can't necessarily you can only buy certain places, food items, I mean. So yeah, that I feel like those two kind of they're one and the same. And then there are some products that I like. So like, for example, like the favorite type of car maybe that I like, or a car that I want. So to be able to pull in the car and then give some details about the car or truck or whatever. So that's been my those are my thoughts, and the different things that we've been doing.
So I would focus in on that and get that details page going, right? So start building out, okay, what shows up on that? What information about the item? Doesn't matter what kind of item it is, right? Doesn't matter if you end up with food or car or jewelry or whatever it ends up being, right? Just building that page out, so that when we get to the database and we get to the API and we get to all of that stuff, we can start integrating that data in.
Okay. And now, is it correct that you're available on the 4th of July?
I didn't block that out, but I believe I will actually be flying that day. I will circle back with you to confirm, Christy.
Okay. Okay.
Awesome progress.
Thank you. And then I made this.
Oh, sorry, I stopped your screen share.
I was gonna say that other page I made, that's my personal page, and I was showing Jason, and he was saying, because he was telling me to volunteer at places to work on their website to get exposure. So I showed him that. So I told him that I was already kind of advertising myself. Okay.
Nice.
Thank you.
Larry, you were up next.
Okay. Let's see, desktop 3. See, all right. So as I said, let me start over. So my ideal is to create an app that reorganizes your grocery list based on the aisle that the items are in. So when you create your list, you might think, dairy section, but you don't know the aisles that everything is in. So you can just put your list in, and based on the particular store, it will reorganize it by aisle. The name of it is called Where's The. It's a play off of back in the days, Where's the Beef? So, you go in the store, you're always asking somebody where is, whatever. So progress wise, as far as HTML, all I have is the H1 up there. But like, again, breaking that blank canvas gave me the confidence to now I know I can continue to go further. I do have a bunch of data. This is like about 5,000 lines of data. This is actually from Wegmans website using the network and the response from a cereal search. So this is just 5,000 lines for cereal. So I do plan on trying to go through and they have a generic list, which I put in a spreadsheet already. Where's my spreadsheet? So I went to Wegmans and DeWitt, Onondaga, James Street. Then I also went to Price Chopper. I don't know why Price Chopper's not up here. But as you can see, they just had generic, they had a generic printout with the aisle that everything was in. It's like air freshener, but you can't put a particular brand in and pull up information about that. But with the information from Wegmans API, I see that I'm able to do that. So I'm going to use that to try to spice it up. What minimum viable product is, you put bread in and it tells you where bread is at. Let's see, what else? And this was one of my whiteboards. So this was me brainstorming some of the requirements and some of the functionality that I want to put in it. It's not complete yet, but that was a start for me. And I also want to, besides just being able to tell you where the item is, I want to be able to include information about the particular product. So like price, things of that nature. Also user authentication. So the person I want to do, I want to do a login and a register page. So that was the page that I was working on now. So they would have to register and then they can log in and out, and maybe their list will be saved somewhere in the database if I'm allowed to do that. I don't have any maps. I would like to have, I have a map of Price Chopper. I would like to have included that a long time ago when Google Glass was a thing. That's how long ago I had this idea. I thought it would be cool to be able to navigate through the store, with Google Glass back then, but that never panned out. And pages, I need to make the login page, register page, and a list page. I think those are the main pages. And some of the functionality, kind of like Doug had mentioned, once you click on the item is found, it would cross it out and then send it to the bottom of your list. And I want to also make my list look like paper. So those are the things that I have in my head and on some paper.
Awesome progress. Yeah. Larry, did you happen to use the network tab to get that data out?
Yeah, I can show you now. Yeah, but Jason let me share my screen again. Jason showed me, and the information he showed me wasn't necessarily what I needed, but that put me in the right place to know, okay, you can find this information and where to possibly find it. So as I said, I did a Wegmans search. If you can see my screen, it brought up like all the different cereals at that particular store. And then it does tell you the location of it. So this one is in 19B. This one is in 5B. So what we did was look in the inspector and we went to the network tab. And I think I went under.
You've got a filter in there. I don't know if that's the right Nation A.
Oh, national. Oh, I was looking for a brand.
And you may need to refresh the page just so or do another search query, and then the network tab will pick it up.
Okay. And let's see.
That should be down the T at the bottom.
The T. Oh, okay. Let me make this bigger, matter of fact. Where'd you go? But there were like a bunch of other, this is not it. There was a bunch of other.
Go back to all up at the top.
All.
You set it to fetch, set it back to all up here.
Oh, okay.
And then try doing a search for something other than cereal.
Okay. I have the somewhere I have the what do you call the thing? I have the response that I got somewhere marked down. Yeah. But long story short, I did find it down there. I got to figure out how to do it again though. But I did find it down there. And it was a bunch of different responses or whatever down here, and that's how I found it.
Yeah, I just loaded it for the first time and did a search for cereal, and I got 673 requests. So there was some filtering you must have done in order to get let's see if I can get this working.
Well, I had a lot of them too. What I did was I saw one that said like, I think it had like products in it or something. So I said, oh, let me click on that one and see if that's the one I needed. Because the one was with the T, I believe is the one that Jason had initially pointed me to, but it didn't necessarily do what I wanted it to.
Yeah, so here I'll just share my screen on this. So what I did is when I was in a Wegmans page, I right click and I'm not sharing this screen. No, I'm sharing the right one. When you're in the Wegmans tab and you do a search for something, so I'll just do a search for cereal. And when you're in network, you can clear everything out. And what the network tab is doing is it's recording everything coming and going from your browser, right? So it's literally every API request that the Wegmans site is making. So when I do a search for cereal, you see it's going to have all of the cereals come back. But here are all of the API calls that are happening in order to make my cereal search result show up. And so if you look into here for something like store products,
here it is, yeah.
Under the preview tab, it's going to show me all of the data coming back from their API. And so while I'm in here, I can open up items, and now it's showing me, hey, the item, the aisle is 12A, and the product ID is in here, the images, whether it's alcoholic or not, and then the name of the product itself. And so what we can do is use this network tab in the browser to see what API calls the website is making. And based off of those, we could make some of those same API calls ourselves to get the same data back. And the details of that API call are all available in the headers, right? So we can see what that request is being made to. And if we get lucky, we can take this whole URL, copy and paste it. And sometimes we can get all of that data back, including the aisle information and all the other information about the product in here. Oh, would you two stop drooling over the chicken?
It was a couple chickens on there. I was like, those look so
It is
good.
dinner time.
All right. With all of that said, did anyone else want to present tonight before we move on to React routing? So just to reiterate where we should be tonight, with your, or this far into the program, with your capstone, you should have some HTML pages built out. Those pages should be linked together, and you should start thinking about that content. What content is showing up on that page? If you want, you can do the extra step of making our page or our app work in React, which we will be finishing up those concepts tonight. And then starting when we come back from break, reminder, we are off next week. Feel free to schedule one-on-ones during that time. When we come back next week, I'm sorry, in 2 weeks, we are off all of next week and the 4th of July. We come back on Tuesday and we hit the ground running with Node. And then once we get Node up and running, we move into databases, and then we tie all of those full stack concepts together. So that's where we're headed next. Tonight, we are wrapping up React routing. And I'm sorry, we're starting on React routing. And hopefully that will give you some ideas on a multi-page app and how we can actually use React to build something. With that said, do we have any questions on anything before we dive in?
I do, just to make sure I'm moving fast enough. Are we duplicating the folder and doing another day?
We're starting from scratch tonight. So we are opening our terminal. We are CDing to our desktop and into our My Code folder. We are CDing into week 13, and we are npxing a create React app called routing. And again, we're doing that in our week 13 folder. I guess I should have done that in day 4, shouldn't I? Oh well. We'll be in week 13.
That's dir day 4.
Space D4 or day 4, yes. And then make sure you CD into it before you create React app. So because I made a mistake and I wasn't in my day 4 folder, I'm just going to in Finder, make a day 4 folder and drag routing into it. But the goal that we're going for here is in our day 4 that we got a routing folder. So I'm going to pop that open in VS Code. I'm going to close out of my terminal because we're done with it. I'm going to go up to the top. I'm going to right click on package.json, open an integrated terminal, and I'm going to npm run start. That is going to pop open our React page. And then to clean some things up here, I'm going to go to my source, my app.css. I'm going to delete everything in that. And I'm going to go to my app.js, and I'm going to delete everything inside of that div tag. And we're stopping here to poll to make sure everyone is caught up on their blank page in the browser on localhost 3000.
Okay.
What was that command in console again?
npm run start or npx create React app routing.
Can you tell me one more time how to? So CD takes you back. I did CD. So CD.
CD changes your directory. Could be up, could be down.
But as long as I put where I want to go, it takes me there or no?
Yep. So everything I did in the terminal was I PWD'd first. I'm in my users folder. I ls and I see desktop. That's where I want to get to. So I CD to my desktop. From there, I'm going into my code folder. Then I'm going into week 13. Now I ls. If I don't have my day 4 folder, I'm going to mkdir day 4. Then I am going to CD into my day 4. And then I'm going to npx create React app routing.
This the same thing happens to me every time, which is I've CD'd to go to week 13 because it has me in day 2. So when I CD'd to go to day 13, it said no such file or directory.
Okay, so run pwd.
PWD.
Where does it tell you you are?
It says desktop C3 my code week 13 day 2.
Okay, so you're in day 2. You need to get out of day 2. You need to go up one directory. So we cd space ...
Oh, that's what it is. I did week 13. So it took me to week 13. And now all I need to do is make directory day 4.
Well, if you cd ... and you run pwd and you're no longer in day 4, then yes, you can mkdir day 4.
Right, I'm in week 13. So
Yep.
okay. Thank you.
I'm
Shout
sorry.
out to Kaz for this note, this little sticky note.
I think actually Ariel gets the credit for that. She typed up the cheat sheet. Chaz just shared it.
Okay, but both of them. Shout out to everybody who helped.
Hey, Max.
Yeah.
npx create.
npx create React app routing.
Thank you.
What was the way to like make a new folder in the terminal? Sorry.
mkdir.
Okay. N or M?
M is in make.
R. And then
So wait a minute. We put in the NPX first, then make the directory?
NPX makes the routing directory for you.
Oh. I gotta learn this.
damn it.
Um,
Anyone need help?
I'm a little slow. Create React app. Dash with 2 dashes in it, right? That's where I'm at.
Yes.
React dash app.
Max, did you do a live share?
Did now. Thank you for the reminder.
oh,
Thank you.
Can you tell me one more time, how do I open VS Code from the terminal?
The way I do it is I type in open space period enter. That pops the the folder open in Finder. I then grab the routing folder and drag it onto the VS Code icon in the dock. If you are fancy and have developer tools installed from VS Code, you can run, what's the command, Larry? Is it just code? Or is it VS Code?
The folder that you want to, so if you get into your routing folder, it would be code and then space period. And then
Okay.
that will open up everything in that thing.
Space.
You have to be in the folder that you want to open everything up in though.
Code space period.
So if I do code,
Yeah, I don't have the developer option, so that must be reason why.
go to settings and type
That's-
shell. Go to the VS Code settings and then type shell, and then it will say install shell. And then it should say install shell command. I don't see it. That's interesting.
Code.
Maybe do a command shift P instead.
I remember you saying this before too.
Here we go.
There.
so if you
Command-
command shift P and do a search for shell, it will say install code command and path. You click on that and then hit OK and type in your password. It will say installed successfully in path. You do have to quit out of your terminal for that to be reactive. But now when you reopen your terminal and go down to wherever you're trying to get to, so desktop, C3 my code, week 13, day 4, and run CD into our routing. Now, when I run code space period, it's automatically going to open it for me in VS Code.
Yeah, I'll do that another time because that was a lot of steps. So just let us go.
Okay. So we are going to set up our routing for the first time. Routing is how we take what is considered a single page application. Well, what's a single page application? If we think about anything we've created in React so far, right? Our to-do list or our chat app, that's all been on one page. How can we get it so our React app shows multiple pages worth of stuff? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my file explorer, and in source, I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call it page1.js. And in page1.js, I'm just going to say const page1 equals, and I'm going to return an h1 that says page1. And I'm going to export my default as page1. And I'm going to copy this whole thing and create a new file called page2.js, and I'm just going to replace any place there's a 1, I'm going to make it a 2 instead. Okay, so now that we're here, if I'm in my browser, nothing shows up. And if I come up into my URL and I say page1.js, it's like, I don't know what that is. Well, we could go to our app.js and say, hey, go make page 1.
Hey, happy birthday to the cancers.
And in our page 1, now I get page 1. I'm just going to take that out of the URL. But how do I get page 2? I want to be able to switch between the two of them. Believe it or not, this is a function that is not built into React. So what we need to do is actually use an NPM package called React Router. And React Router is what allows us to switch between multiple pages. So if you're someone who reads better, reads documentation and understands that better than following along, there is a new to React Router section that takes you through almost all the same concepts we are going to cover tonight. But we're going to plow on here. We need to install React Router first. So in my terminal down here, I need to stop the server from running. We can't add new packages to our React app with it running in the background. So what I need to do is I need to click into my terminal and hit Control-C. Once I Control-C out, I'm back into my terminal, so I can run the command npm I. I is short for install. Doesn't matter if you just do the I or install. And I'm going to install the package called React Router. Now that it's installed, I'm going to npm start again, and that's going to fire up my React app again. Okay, so now I've got React Router installed. Now I need to use it. So I'm going to import a couple things from React Router. I'm going to import this thing called Browser Router. I'm going to import a route, and I'm also going to import routes.
Can we install the router one more time?
Yep. In our terminal, I'm going to Control-C. Actually, I need to check myself because I may have installed the wrong thing. Oh, I did install the wrong thing. If you have this installed, sorry, we need to backtrack here for a second. I need to uninstall a package. This was totally intentional, so you guys understand how to uninstall packages as well. We are going to uninstall React Router. And now we'll take a second and uninstall it. And instead, we are going to npm install React Router DOM. DOM stands for the document object model. So once we npm install React Router DOM, now we can npm start, and that's going to fire us up back into the browser.
Is that dash DOM?
Yes.
Dash DOM.
It's React dash router dash DOM. Mel copied and pasted it into the chat.
Where are you getting this information from, Max?
The React Router tutorial, which is linked in tonight's outline.
Can you show how to uninstall one more time? Because I don't think mine's doing anything.
Yep. I Control-C to get out of the terminal that's running my server. I'm going to npm uninstall React dash router and hit enter, and that will take a second. And then I can npm install React dash router dash DOM and hit enter on that, and that will install it back.
Before you said, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Before you said npm I, what were you doing then?
Installing. npm I and npm install are the same command.
That's what I was wondering. I'm sorry, I don't be knowing the shortcuts and stuff, and sometimes I feel a little slow when I'm like, but then it comes back and it clicks.
Okay, so I'm going to npm start. I've got my import up here at the top. That's importing browser, router, route, and routes. Okay. Excuse me. So now we need to set up our app to start using all those imports that we pulled in. So, and I'm pulling this information all from the tutorial. So if you go down into the browser router and actually just go a little bit further, you can see where they're using browser router, routes, and route. So that's what we're going to set up. In here, instead of just pulling in page 1, I'm going to say, hey, browser router. And inside that browser router, we're going to do something. We're going to have routes inside that browser router. That's just setting up our React router so it understands, hey, browser is where we're using the different routers, and the routes is going to contain a list of all of our individual routes that we're using, or routes. Either is fine. Okay, now we get to have some fun. We get to say, hey, go get a route. And the route here is going to say the path is equal to /page1. And the element that I would like to show up for that, the component, is going to be page 1. I cannot type tonight. Oh, come on, Max. Okay, that is what we should have. So we can copy this whole route and paste and say page 2 is going to come in from page 2. So in our browser, when we come over here and we go to React app, nothing shows up when the page first loads. But if I go to /page1, I get page 1. And if I go to page 2, I get page 2. All right, stopping to poll there. So a couple steps that we got here. After we created the React app, we stopped the server and we npm-i'd react-router-dom. That's what got our npm package installed, right? So now we've got access to use everything built into the React router. Next step, we restarted our server. So if you're cannot connect to localhost over here, you need to come back to your terminal and run npm start over here. Okay, now that we've got React router installed, our server's back up and running, we've got to pull a couple things out of React router DOM. We're pulling the browser router that's coming from React router. We're pulling the route itself, and we're pulling routes. Now, in order to get React router DOM working, we need to put in a browser router and a routes tag. Okay, now that we've got those in, we can start defining our routes. We can start saying, hey, there's a route here. Where is that route going to show up? The name of it is going to be page 1. Okay, now what element do you want to show up on page 1? Oh, I would like this component called page 1 to show up. Where is page 1 coming from? Oh, it's coming from the import up here on page 1. That means whatever is coming out of here is going to show up whenever we go to page 1 here.
Looks similar to what we did yesterday with state.
Similar, yep, just different end goal of making sure that we can get to different pages between these two. Stephanie, go ahead.
Can I share my page?
Yep, go for it.
Thank you. Trying to figure out where I went wrong here. When I'm trying to save, it doesn't.
Scroll over just a tiny bit. Oh, nope, not that. Route, roots, closing div. Oh, that semicolon is causing you problems on 16.
Huh. And then what about this?
You're missing an opening quote after from before React.
Oh, there we go. Hey, okay, thank you.
Yep. And don't forget to npm run start in your terminal.
Oh, I think I missed a step. I kind of want to get it before I have to leave out to work.
Yep, go ahead.
I think it's the terminal part where I should install 3 packages.
Did you install React Router, Dom?
In
the terminal. Right click on package.json, open an integrated terminal. npm install with a space in between. Space, oh, watch that, yep. React dash router dash DOM, DOM. Dash, not underscore.
React dash
router.
Oh, router, okay.
Dash DOM, DOM. Enter. And then npm start after that install is done. Nope, npm start.
Yeah, both of.
And then just hit Y on that, yeah. Okay, now up in your URL, add a, you've got browse router instead of browser router. Browser router, just type an R in there. Yep, you got it. And then fix your closing tag on 14. Okay, so now when you go, your page 2 is not defined. I don't think you imported it. Oh, you don't have anything in your page 2.
What? What? Come on.
Then in your app.js, you need to import page 2 from page 2. And then finally take out page 1 on line 16. Okay, now in your URL, in the localhost 3002, put a slash at the end and type in page 1. Enter, and you get page 1, and then change the URL to 2, and you should get page 2. Oh. Go back. Oh, or that works too. Okay, you're good to go.
I gotta leave. Yeah, crap.
Danielle, go ahead.
Okay, I'm just looking to get some clarification about what we're building. So is this just regular pages? For example, if we were to do a Google search and there's multiple results and it goes from page 1 to next, that's what we're building right now.
Yeah, right now we're building any React app that requires multiple pages. So it could be Google search results going on to the next page. It could be something as simple as, hey, Google has a Google search and a Google images search and a Gmail link, and those are all different pages, right? So it's not even necessarily search results. It's anything in React that requires multiple pages. Anything that we had multiple HTML pages before and use the A tag on, that's what we need to use React Router for in order to be able to set all of that up.
Okay, so I'm just making sure that I understand this correctly. Whereas before we were linking pages to HTML, with this, we can just link them by using this function or using, I don't know what we would call it.
Not necessarily. Right now, without React Router, there's no way to get just page 1 to show up on the page. There's no way to get just page 1 or just page 2 to show up. So if you think about our to-do list app, right, we just had one page for the to-do list.
Right.
And if you think about the chat app, we just had that one page. Well, what happens if we want a list of all of the people we've been messaging? Well, that's going to be on a different page. And what if we want to click into that list and see the message history going on there? Well, that's another page. In order to be able to pull that off, we have to be able to set up routes so that we can tell React, hey, when you go to /page 1, I want page 1 to show up.
All right, thank you.
The @6 sign at the end of the install command is specifying a version of React Router DOM to install. So if you put the @6 in there, it's just defaulting you to install version 6, which happens to be the latest version, which is why we didn't have to include it when we ran it. Larry, go ahead. Go ahead, you're unmuted.
Yeah, so it's telling me that there's no such route as, oh, I didn't share it. All right. There's no such route as, come on, man. There we go. No routes match location /.
Okay, that's fine. We didn't define one there. So if you go up to your URL and do a /page 1 at the end, and then hit enter. Now you got your page 1.
Thank you.
And then if you do 2, obviously you should get that as well.
Thank you.
Doug, you're up next.
When we installed the React router, I already forgot what the package is called, but the routing package, is that just in this folder of React?
Yes.
Just in this one project? Okay.
Yes.
So we have to install it for each one that we want to use it.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got 12 volts in, so I am moving on to the next concept here. So in order to be able to link between these pages, we can do an A tag, right? But if we want to do it the way React Router has it set up, which is slightly more efficient to do it this way, what we're able to do is go to page 1, and what we need to do is import link from React Router DOM. And now that we've got that link, we can say, I'm going to put all of this in a div tag. And in that div, I can say, hey, I would like to link to page 2. And inside that link, I would like to say, go to page 2. Now this link tag is coming in from React Router DOM. And because we do it in React Router DOM, we're getting a more efficient way to switch over to page 2 here. So now when we go back to our URL, we go to page 1, we get this go to page 2 here. And when we click on it, it takes us right over to page 2. So this is just like an A tag, except this is the preferred way of doing it because it's coming right from the router package, because it's coming from the router package, it's a little bit more efficient. Chaz, are you still stuck?
Yeah, I'm gonna make a confession.
I got it now.
You're good, Chaz, or do you need help?
No, I'm good now.
Okay,
Can you help me? I'm way far behind, and I do apologize, everybody. I was trying to catch up.
go ahead. Okay, so go ahead and run that. Okay, npm run start. Enter. And then you need to create and copy and paste everything from page 1, page 2, and app.js into your own code. And hit Y in the terminal and enter. Okay, so that should get you to your React app. Now you can catch up on everything that we've done in app.js, page1.js, and page2.js. Okay, so we've got our links working, right? Now we move on to the next section of, hey, this is cool, but wouldn't it be nice if we could make something show up on every page? Well, Max, why would you want to make something show up on every page? Well, think about a nav bar, think about a header or a footer. We may want those to show up on every page and just have the content below it or to the side of it show up. So what we're able to do is wrap everything in a route, and the path we can put in as a slash. And what we are going to do is we're going to say, hey, the element that's going to show up is an element called layout. Well, we don't have an element called layout set up yet. So what we're going to do is create a new file called layout.js. And I'm going to say const layout equals. And we're going to say, let's return a div. And in that div, we will say there's going to be a header. And that header is going to say H1 Max's awesome app. And I'm going to save that. I come back to my app.js, and now I can use, oh, I didn't export that, did I? In my layout.js, I'm going to export my default layout. And then in my app.js, I can use my layout now. So I come over here, I go to my homepage, and I get Max's awesome app. And now if I come in here and I say, hey, go to page 1, I just get page 1 showing up. I don't get everything else. Okay. That is because we didn't nest our routes together yet. So I want to say, hey, anytime that we're on the slash or anything else, make layout show up in addition to either page 1 or page 2 if we're on it. So what I do is I remove that self-closing tag and embed it in that route. So what we're doing is we're saying layout should show up all the time, but based on the route, the path, whether we're on page 1 or page 2, make that show up based off of what our path is. So I come over here. Well, now I've got Max's awesome app, but I'm on page 1. Why am I not seeing page 1? That's because we need to give our layout file an outlet. What we need to do is say, hey, whatever is coming in, we need to make show up somewhere on this page. So we're going to import an outlet from React Router DOM. And now wherever we put that outlet, I want to put it down here, is where the rest of the page content is going to show up. So whatever happens in this route, whether it's page 1 or page 2, essentially it's going to go into the layout file and dump that route right into where this outlet is. So when I'm over here, I get page 1, but I also get Max's awesome app. And if I go to page 2, now my URL changes, I still see Max's awesome app because we're using layout and embedding these routes inside of it. So this layout could be a header or a nav bar or a footer, anything that's going to show up on multiple pages, we're going to set up in this layout. And then whatever routes are inside of those pages is what is going to show up in this outlet. So if we actually look at our HTML, what's coming out is my div, my header, my Max's awesome app, but outside of the header, my H1 is showing up. Where is that H1 coming from? That's coming from my outlet, which is coming from my page 2 route that it matched on, which is coming from my page 2 component, which is coming all the way back from the H1 right here. We're going to pull. We're going to wait until a couple of you guys are getting this, and then we will go on break in a couple minutes.
In my app.js, let me make sure. Can I share my screen?
Go for it.
So you see right here, I just got these things I read. I don't know
Yep.
why.
Your you're missing a closing route tag before your routes.
Right here.
That's where it opens. You need to close it between 15 and 16.
Wait a minute. Oh, I need a whole nother route word. Okay. I wondered why that one didn't have an S.
There you go.
Voila. Thank you.
No problem. Stephanie, go ahead.
Sorry, I think I fell behind. My browser's only seeing Max's awesome app, but I'm not seeing what I missed. I suspect it's with the outlet stuff, but
Yep.
let me show.
I mean, Max is awesome is probably enough. I don't know why you need any more than that. Your outlet looks fine. I don't see any problems there. Go back to your app.js.
Okay.
Well, everything looks fine there too. Let me see your browser. Oh, you need to go to a different page. So up in the URL, put page 1 instead of that question mark. And now you get page 1. And if you click go to page 2, now you get page 2.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep. Zach, you're up next.
Yeah, I have a semicolon in front of my links on both pages. It's like semicolon, go to page 2.
Okay. Share your page or your screen.
See it?
You sure do.
So
okay.
I went here and there's no semicolon there.
Nope. Go to your app.js. Ain't no semicolon there either. All right, last chance to check. Go to your layout. The hell? Where's that semicolon coming from? Let me request remote control because you've got me stumped. App layout. Oh, your layout is supposed to encompass these two routes.
Oh,
Because we always want the layout to show up no matter whether you're on page 1 or on page 2. That doesn't fix your problem. Oh, there it is.
okay,
Fixed it.
cool. Thank you.
No problem. Go ahead, Doug.
Can I share my screen?
Yep.
So nothing's showing up.
So we need to go to /page1 in the URL.
Oh, nothing by default shows up?
Nothing by default. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, nothing's still showing up. So we got a different problem there. Go back to your app.js. Browser router. Open your console in the browser. Do you have an error in there? Aha.
oh,
Use href can only be used. So it's mad about your two links because you're trying to use a link that isn't inside of the router.
oh, these down here.
Yep.
Thank you.
Well, don't thank me yet. There you go.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, who else needs help? Wayne, go ahead. Wayne, did you intentionally raise your hand? All right, let's do one more run through here. All right, so we've got our browser router, our routes. Those are all coming in from React Router DOM. From them, we say, hey, whenever we're on a page that starts with a slash, that's the basic, the highest part of our website, make the layout show up. Then, depending on whether we are on page 1 or page 2, make those components show up. So what we do is we go into the layout component, and this div and header is going to show up on every page that we're on. Then whatever is coming from inside of here, these are the children of this parent route, that is what's going to show up in the outlet. Okay, now based off of that outlet, we're going back to app.js. We've got two routes here, one for page 1, one for page 2. So what we're doing is we're saying page 1 is going to show up in this outlet here if the route, the path is page 1. And if it is, if that does match, go to page 1 and make this show up, this whole page 1 div here. So if we actually look in the browser and we're on page 1, not only do we see that header tag that's showing up on our layout section, but we also see this div with the page 1 in it. And that page 1 is coming from here. And because we are on page 1 here, it is showing up where the outlet is here.
And outlet comes from the layout page.
From React Router DOM, but yes, it is coming from app.js based off of what path is true here. That is what will show up in the outlet here. But yes, because in app.js, these routes are inside of this route up here, that's why it will show up in the outlet there. Okie doke. So let's go on break and we'll be back at 7:30. And so we've got our page 1, we've got our page 2, we've got a lot of that going on. We know that's working in the browser. We can go to page 1, we go to page 2, everything's fine. Let's actually build something going on with the router. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, the place we're going to start is the data. So I'm going to send this in the live stream channel. But what we're going to do is we're going to create a new file called data.js inside of our source folder. I'm then going to go to Slack and I'm going to copy this whole not only the array, but also the export default down at the bottom. I'm going to go back into my data.js and paste that in.
I have a question. So why is your data lowercase? Why is everything like, I don't know.
Because it's not a component. It's just the array that's coming out. If our invoices were actually, we were about to create something called invoices.js with an uppercase I, because that is going to show that's a component itself. So whenever we have generic JavaScript files, we're going to use a lowercase. Whenever that file has a component in it, it's going to get an uppercase. Danielle, go ahead.
Okay, I had a question regarding on the app.js line 14 and 15, where we're routing the path to the page. Is that the same reason why that's lowercase instead of uppercase, or was it supposed to be uppercase?
So URLs tend to be lowercase, but we could really call this anything we wanted to, right? If we wanted to call this unicorn, and when we go to the unicorn path, page 1 still shows up. So this path name can really be called whatever you want. This path is what's linking the URL in the browser to the component over here. So you could call this whatever, but in general, URLs tend to be lowercase in the browser, right? So like if I just go to Google and I do a search for NY Times and go, you see search is all lowercase in the browser. And then if I open New York Times and pick on some random article, you'll see that it's all lowercase in the URL. So URLs tend to be lowercase. That's not a hard and fast rule, and you definitely can use uppercases. But in general, we use lowercases in URLs and paths.
Thank you.
There are lots of rules on uppercase and lowercase, and not everyone agrees on them. So do not feel like you are missing something. It takes a long time to figure out when to uppercase, when to lowercase. React complicates that even more by mixing JavaScript with HTML. So don't feel like you're missing something. I mean, it just takes a long time to figure out when you're supposed to uppercase or lowercase.
So could that like be our downfall? Like if we have like all the right code in there, but we just don't have a like
you definitely could, but the error message would tell you, would tip you off to that. So don't forget when you're in the browser over here, like I'm on my page and it's all blank. And I'm like, why is it all blank? Well, if I go to my console, it's going to tell me no routes match location unicorn. Oh, well, that's because unicorn, I changed it back to page 1. So the computer is telling me in the errors, hey, I've got to go back to page 1 to get that to show up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So we've got our data.js. Now we need to do something with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create yet another new file, and I'm going to call it invoiceslist.js. And in there, I'm going to const invoices list is equal to a new function that is going to return a div. And inside that div, we're going to say invoices go here. And then we are going to export the default invoices list. So now when we go to our app.js, now you guys may have been noticing when I just don't put anything here, I get Max's awesome app, but I don't get anything underneath it. That's because I'm not matching on page 1 or on page 2, so I'm not getting either of them. But what I can do is say, hey, the path here is just still going to be the slash. And what I want to show up then is the invoices list component. So now when I'm in my browser, I get my invoices go here when I don't specify a path up at the top. Sorry, I'm not fast enough on the mute button there. Okay, so I've got my invoices go here, but I've got all of that data hanging out in my data.js file. So I want to use that. So I'm going to go back to my invoices list, and up at the top, I am going to import my invoices from my data file. And now that I've got access to that, what I want to do is go over, map over each invoice. And for each invoice, I want something to come out. Let's just say it's going to be a, let's actually put all of this in an unordered list. And in here, we are going to return a list item with the invoice name. And now we're going to fix that closes that, that closes that, and that closes that. Okay. So if we go over to our browser, we see Santa Monica, Ocean Avenue, Tub Thumper, wide open spaces. That is all coming from my data.js file. That's coming from the names of each one of them here. So let's take a step back. First things first, I created a component called invoices list. So I do my const, I return something from it, and I export default. Step 2, I go to my app.js and I create a new route for that. So I'm saying, hey, when nothing is specified at the end of the URL, assume you want to load in invoices list. But because it's still in my layout file is still going to show this header, but it's just going to show the list of invoices in that outlet. Okay. Now in my invoices list, I want to import something from the data file. What are we importing? We're importing this array of objects. Okay, now how do we want that to show up? It's going to be in an unordered list, loop over them using map, which gives me access to each individual invoice. Now that I've got access to that individual invoice, go make the invoice name show up in a new list item. And the last thing we're going to do is add a key on here, and the key is going to use the invoice number because the invoice number is always unique. So we should have, if I refresh this, we should have the list of invoices showing up here now. Stopping there to poll. Nicole, I can go up to 4x if you want.
I'm crying.
So our goal here is that we've got 5 bullet points showing up. Those bullet points are coming from our data.js file. They're flowing through to our app.js where we've created the new route here. That route is triggering this invoices list component, which is pulling in the data from that file. And then we are mapping over that data to make the bullet points show up in an unordered list. And by looping over each one of the items, we are essentially getting out each one of these objects. So as we get each individual object out, we are able to pull out data from them. So we're using the name and the number. Okay, well, if we look in our invoices list, we're pulling out the number and the name. And the reason why we need that key is, again, for React. So React knows, hey, if something in that array changes, do I need to re-render all of this information?
I closed out of the poll on accident, but mark me down for caught up.
You got it.
Thank you.
I really hate Zoom polling because it doesn't let you change your answer or retrieve the poll once you've closed out of it.
So we should just have like Santa Monica and all that stuff popping up on our, yeah, okay, thank you.
Eight votes in, 9 votes in, just need one more. There are any parts of this that you're not understanding, even if you do have it working, if you need any help, any extra explanations, let me know. All right, I think we're good to move on here unless anyone else has questions or needs a couple more minutes.
This I'm not seeing the invoices coming up. Maybe
Okay, go ahead and share your screen. And Zach, I'll come to you next. Okay, so you need to change the route in your browser. Just take out page 2, because what we did is we set up invoices list to be on kind of the home page. So if you delete that and hit enter. Okay. Now go back to your app.js file. And save it. Okay, you need to import your invoices list in your app.js. So you've got import invoices, that's coming from your data. That's not what you want. What you want to do is you want to import invoices list from the invoices list file. So instead of from data, that's going to come from invoices list.js, capital I. Yep, you got it. All right, save that. And you're, oh, okay. You're almost good to go. You've gotten the invoice number showing up instead of the invoice name. So if you go back to your invoices list and look in the tag, you've got invoice number instead of invoice name. And now you are good to go.
Thank you.
Can I go next?
Zach,
got
you're
one
next,
little-
and then Nicole, I'll come to you.
I'm getting a error, cannot find file data.js, does not match corresponding name on disk.
Okay, go ahead and share your screen. And go to your browser. I'm sorry, go to your VS Code. Data is a capital D, not a lowercase d in the file name when you created it. So just rename that.
Okay, thank you.
And then just take out page 2 from your URL and you should see the thing showing up. Okie doke, we good to move. Oh, Nicole, did you need help?
Yeah, I do. I got a little curly red thing in my code. I just want to see if it got me through.
Okay.
1 second. I thought this was the reason why, but it's not. Is this one right here under the? Oh, it was here. Let me just do that. Oh, it was on this line, but it's gone now. So maybe I don't know.
Is it working
Thank
in your
you.
browser?
I don't know. Hold on. No.
Okay, expected closing. Okay, so go back to your code.
Let me pull up my terminal.
Scroll over a little bit. Yeah, that's helpful. Thanks. You need a closing tag on 15. Right before the closing arrow, you need a slash. Nope. Closing arrow, the very end of that tag. So it's closing arrow, curly brace, closing arrow. Right there, you got it. You need a closing there.
Okay.
And then take page 2 out of your URL and you should see what you need. Good to go.
Thank you.
Zach, did you have another question?
Yeah, mine is working, but it's centered instead of left aligned.
In app.css, just delete everything in that file.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay. So, hey, we've got our invoices showing up, but wouldn't it be cool if we could click on one of them and get more details of that invoice? But wouldn't it be even cooler if we could just set that file up once, and then no matter what invoice we were on, it would automatically just pull in the data for that invoice? Okay. About to blow some minds here before we finish it up for the week. We are going to create yet a new component, and that component is just going to be called invoice.js. And we define this component just like any other component. And we're going to return a div that says invoice details go here. And we export our default invoice. Then we are going to go back to our app.js, and in here, we're going to say, hey, when you go to a path called /invoices, pull in the invoice ID. This colon is telling React Router, hey, there's going to be a dynamic value coming in here. So we're going to go to invoice number 1995 or invoice number 2000. And based off of what gets put in here, that's the invoice that we're going to show. So we're going to say, hey, the element that shows up here is our invoice component. Okay, now none of that's working yet. All we're doing is wiring it up to that invoice component. So now we're on this invoice page and we need to make it a link. So we're going to go back to our invoices list. And what we're going to do is we are going to import the link from React Router DOM. And then the whole name is going to become a link. And where is it linking to? It is going to link to /invoices/ and now we're getting crazy here, a template literal invoice.number. What did we just do there? A lot. If we look and we inspect this element, this is now a link to invoices 1995. And if we click on that, it takes me to invoice details go here. But look at our URL. It's got that 1995 going on at the top of it. So what we did, we first created our invoice page. This isn't anything special. We went to our app.js and we said, hey, whenever you see a path with invoices at the front of it, know that after that / whatever's coming in is the invoice number, the invoice ID we are looking for. Okay, now we've set up that route. We aren't using invoice ID yet, but what we do is in the invoices link, when we link to it, we say, hey, go to invoices. We know this is a template literal because the backticks are there. And then we say, pull in the invoice number coming in from the loop. Just like we got invoice name, we're pulling out the invoice number and we're dumping that into the link. So this whole link is going to link to /invoices/ 1995 or /2000 because those are the invoice numbers in our URL. Okay, well, since they're in the URL, wouldn't it be great if I could get access to that? And we can get access to that using use params coming from our React Router DOM. So if I come down here and I say, let params equal use params and console log out my params, look what I get on my invoice details page, invoice ID 1995. So I can pull in my invoices from my data and say, hey, my invoice ID is coming from my params invoice ID. And what I want to do is find the matching invoice from my data here. So I'm going to say invoices, find an invoice where the invoice number matches the invoice ID. Now, if I console log out my matching invoice, I get Santa Monica 1995 amount 10,000. So I can get all of that to show up now from my matching invoice. So I can say the name is matching invoice.name. Then I can do a line break and say, hey, the amount is the matching invoice dot amount, and another line break. And the number is the matching invoice dot number. And I've got a $sign in there that I don't need. Gonna go through all of this in 1 second, but this is our end goal. Now, when I go back and open another invoice, it's got all of that detail coming from my data here. So what we just did is we used that one page, right? Our one invoice.js is now showing all of the information about the invoice without us having to create separate pages for each individual invoice. Okay, let's take a step back. We're in invoices list. First things first, we create our link, and our link is going to /invoices/ whatever the number of the invoice is. Okay, now in our app.js, we say, hey, whenever you see /invoices/ whatever the number of the invoice is, store that in the invoice ID. And React Router knows to do that because of that colon. It knows, hey, this is going to be a dynamic value coming in. This is either going to be 1995 or 2000 or whatever the invoice number is. And whenever we see something going to /invoices/ an invoice number, take them to this invoice page. Okay, so when we click on one of our invoices here, it takes us to invoices /2003. Now we land on our invoice page. And our invoice page is importing two things. It's importing use params. That is a hook that React Router is providing us to get the parameters. What are the parameters? That's this part of the URL. That's the invoice number. Okay, now that we've got that out, we also need to pull the data back in from our file. Now we use params to get the invoice ID out of the URL. That's coming from this part right here. We then store that in invoice ID. The problem is we just have the ID. We need to get all the other data associated with that invoice. So what we do is we go into the invoices. That is, again, coming from our data.js. That is this whole array in here. And what we do is we try and find the invoice where the invoice number, that is the part coming from data, we're trying to match the number, whatever the number is here, with whatever the invoice ID is coming from our params, which is coming from React Router, which is ultimately resulting in that 2003. So then once we finally have that matching invoice, which is just going to be the object coming out from our array, we can return out the content that we would like to show from that matching invoice. So I know this is a whole heck of a lot. So let's take a step back and make sure that we understand, hey, the benefit of this is we really only have 3 files here. We've got our app.js. Well, really 4 files, I guess. We've got our app.js. We've got our invoices list that is showing up on our homepage. The whole point of this file is just to show the list of all the invoices. Then we've got this reusable invoice.js. So even though we have 5 invoices in HTML, you would have to create invoice1.html, invoice2.html, invoice3.html. But what we're able to do here is reuse this invoice component based off of whatever number is getting passed in this URL. So now if we needed to modify anything, we can modify it on this one invoice file. And even though we may have 5,000 invoices in this array, we still only need those 3 components: the app.js, which is all the routing, the invoices list, which is showing us the list of all the invoices, and finally the individual invoice page, which is showing the details from that invoice. Did I get one light bulb turning on tonight?
They're flickering.
All right. Well, I'm going to start the poll, and we're going to see if we can get anyone with that switch flip permanently. If I can. No, Zoom has told me I've polled enough tonight and will not open the polls. Okay, well, let me stop my shit. There it is. Okay, Stephanie, go ahead.
Let me share my screen. I'm not sure how, I'm a little lost. I'm not sure how you got your browser to, so you click one of these and something was supposed to show up here?
Yep, so you've got that no routes match location invoices 1995. That's telling me that's a problem in your app.js. So in your app.js, oh, you've got a period in your path there that shouldn't be there.
This?
Yep. Boom.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
No problem. Zach, go ahead.
I've got like a wall of errors. I fixed a couple of them, but this one's still persisting.
Go for it. Share screen. Invoice is not defined, app line 18. So whenever we get a not defined, that's usually because it's not imported. Okay, now we've got a problem. Your BR, that closing slash, needs to be after the R. I wasn't drunk, but it appeared that I was after I was typing those BR tags. There you go. Okay, now you've got invoice ID is not defined on line 8. You've got a capital I in your invoice when you declare on line 6. Nope, nope, that one. Yeah, there you go. You got it. Boom, invoice data.
Thank you.
You can share my screen, Max.
Sure, and then Christy, I'll come to you next.
So
Okay, so you've got no routes match location invoices 2000. So that tells me it's a problem in your app.js. And you are missing a route for the invoice page.
Okay, thank you.
Christy, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm reading the instructions.
Oh, that's dangerous. We don't like it when you read.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
Somebody's got to read. So a user interface means user and a computer system interact, in particular the use of input devices and software. So I guess understanding, so this could be a shopping app. Or
sure.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so when you say invoice and you're saying page 1, so we would be kind of like what Corey showed us, where it could be you have products and then they show up like that. Okay, because I think that if because I know we're doing all this and we're putting this stuff in here and we're saying, what's that word we're using instead of
Route.
right. So I think
So a
instead of-
route is just every individual page that you want to show up on the website
right. So it's all routing back to the app.
to the correct component in the app. Yes.
Right. Okay. See, that's what I'm saying. I have to make when I make a connection, then it makes it make more sense so that it at least, like Larry said, it's a flicker. It's flickering. Okay. I just wanted to, because you see when you see like now that we search certain things, we get all these advertisements that say UI and AR and all this stuff. So now it makes more sense because it appears to me like this is like a job or even like a course you could take in school to be able to build this kind of stuff. So it make what am I trying to say? Putting it in layman's terms so that we understand what it's for helps to understand why we're doing what we're doing.
Yep.
Okay.
So a UI is just a user interface, right? So anything you've built in HTML and CSS, that is all UI. Everything that you've done in JavaScript is to make that user interface interactable, whether that means that the user is able to type something in, whether that means there's an API call that's pulling data into that user interface, whether that, right, JavaScript is all about making that user interface work behind the scenes. React is a framework on top of JavaScript that makes it easier to integrate data and user interactions into our JavaScript. Now, what we're doing right now is routing. So routing is something that we just took for granted in HTML, right? We had index.html, we linked to page2.html, and it just worked. But what React Router does is give us not only that same functionality, but additional functionality so that we can say, hey, we are just going to create one page called invoice, and based off of whatever URL is passed in, whatever invoice ID is passed in, we're going to reuse this page to show that data. So that's the benefit of, yes, this is not built in. If we want multiple pages to show up in our React app, we do need to set up the router to take us to them. But the benefit of that is that we can reuse some of these components, essentially our own HTML, and not have to create a separate invoice page for each invoice. We can just essentially template out that invoice using the data and make that reusable.
So for the movie app that we created, would we be, if let's say that we wanted to take that online, this is something that we would use to actually sell the tickets or to be able to
anything that we have created so far in class could be recreated in React.
No, I mean like what we're doing tonight, like how we're bringing in the data. Like if we sold tickets and had all that information, we could bring
Yep. So everything we've created so far has really been a single page app, right? The weather, okay, it shows all the weather data and it's a select that changes that page. But what happens if you did want different pages? What happens if you wanted to click onto the forecast and get a link to that forecast information? Well, it's not just the forecast, it's the forecast for a specific location. So you could set up those routes to say /forecast/zip code. And based off of whatever zip code is in the URL, that's the forecast data that's going to show up on that page.
Okay. Okay.
Larry, go ahead.
Two things. I'll share my screen real quick. On line 8, how come we didn't use triple equal?
Oh, I was waiting for someone to answer or to ask that question. So the problem with pulling the invoice ID from the params, whenever we use params, it is always going to return a string. The params are not parsed by data type. Params always return a string. So we got a little sneaky there and used a double equals instead of a triple equals because invoice.number is an actual number. Invoice ID is actually a string. And so we did a loose comparison there. We did not compare types. And that's why we got away with not using a triple equals.
So behind the scenes, did they do type coercion and change them both to either numbers or strings to check that?
Essentially, yes.
Okay. And then the other question was, where was it? App.js. Right here where we do on line 16 where we do the route for the invoices, how can we have a colon for the in front of invoice ID?
That colon is telling it that is now no longer part of the route itself. It is a parameter that is getting passed into the route.
Okay.
So that colon is what sets it up. So when we use the use params hook in our invoice.js file, that colon is telling it, hey, that part of the URL is actually going to be the ID that's going into the parameters.
Can you like explain that a little better?
Yeah, so go to invoice.js. You see how we use .invoice ID on line 6?
Yeah.
Those are coming from the parameters that are coming from React Router.
Okay.
And so what we're doing is we're saying, hey, in the URL, whenever you go to /invoices/ and then a number in there, whatever that number in is going to be a parameter. And so we're going to name that parameter in the root so that when we're in our component and we pull the parameters back out, we're able to get invoice ID out of it.
So basically, the parameter that we're snatching from the invoice ID that we're snatching from the parameters and storing in invoice ID, when it's put in the path, it's going, instead of actually saying invoice ID, is going to put the value that's stored in there in the URL.
You got it.
All right, thank you.
So let me just touch on that one more time. So in our route, we have this colon here. This colon is saying, hey, when we're on a specific invoice, the invoice ID is going to show up as this part of the route. So what we're doing here is we're saying, hey, when you go to invoices, there's going to be a number in here. So we're telling you heads up, that number is coming in so that when we go over to our invoice, we can pull this number out of the params using React Router DOM. So this invoice ID right here in the params is matching whatever the invoice ID is right here. So if we rename this, if we call this invoice num, our code immediately breaks because it says cannot read properties of undefined reading name. It's like I can't find a matching invoice because I'm trying to get the invoice I'm trying to get the invoice ID out of the params, and that doesn't exist. So what we're doing is we're telling it, hey, when an invoice is passed in this part of the URL, that is going to be called the invoice ID. So that when we are in our invoices and we pull our params out, we can get that invoice ID, which is going to be 2003. And if you don't believe me on any of this or need a stepping stone, you can always console log out the invoice ID and see it come out. Hey, this 2003 is coming from this part of the URL. So if we said 2004, it's going to throw an error. It can't find an invoice number 2004, but it is pulling that from the URL. So we could fix that pretty easily. We could say, if there is not a matching invoice, return But if we change our invoice number back to 2003, we get the information we're looking for.
Thank you.
All right, that is all I have for you guys tonight. I was going to touch on use effect, but I think we've had a long week. I think we've done enough in React. How are we feeling? We feeling like we can tackle the homework, which is getting that edit and delete button working in the chat app? Are we feeling like, yes, we saw a lot in React, but we're understanding a little bit of how it's working?
Understand a little bit of how it's working. I still got to figure out the homework problem, but that's another thing.
So we don't, so after today, we don't come back until the 5th.
Correct.
So that's a lot of time to
Get your capstones really impressing me. And to schedule one-on-ones if you need help on either your capstone or on any concepts that you're still struggling with.
right, or to practice.
And if you're at the point where you're like, hey, I need more practice with functions, shoot me a message and I'll either go find some free code camp for you or Code Academy or give you a project where you can practice with your functions.
Do you recommend Scrimba?
Googling Scrimba.
Of course, when you start Googling stuff, things start popping up. Because one of the YouTube videos it took you to Scrimba.
I cannot
need a
personally recommend this
cybersecurity.
one just because I haven't used them or done any research on them. But if they're helping you, it's worth checking that out.
I didn't do anything, but I want to say that the guy from Scrimba is connected to the people at Free Code Camp for some reason. The guy, because I think one of the videos that I watched. So I think he might have some kind of connection. I'm not sure, but
It could very well be. Free Code Camp and Code Academy are the only two that I've personally gone through and can recommend. I know a couple students have not liked the React through Free Code Camp, but they really have understood it in class. So I'm a little bit more hesitant to recommend React through Free Code Camp. However, I do really stand by Free Code Camp for all of JavaScript and HTML and CSS. However, whatever learning resource works for you, I'm definitely not going to discount them.
I think I need to go back to Free Code Camp and do it over, because I think when I did it, I didn't understand. I think now if I redid it, I got the answers because I watched the videos 5 times, but I think now I can do it over and I have time. So
That's what I was going to do too, Chrissy, because they have the updated versions and stuff. So I was going to do that as well.
I was so excited about JavaScript. JavaScript has really broken my heart. Like I really thought, like, oh, we're gonna do JavaScript. I was excited, and I'm like, this is gonna be the death of me. Whew.
If it makes you feel any better, I think JavaScript is going to be the death of me every day.
Oh goodness.
Can you help catch me up on the code? I think
Yep.
I missed it.
All right, invoice list is not defined 16. That is normally because you are missing an import. You've got invoices list imported. Invoices. Well, look at your file name is invoices list. So that needs to match here and here. And in your app.js, go back. And here. So this element is supposed to be linking to the individual invoice, not the entire invoice list. Okay, save. Okay, let's see where you're at in the browser. Let's go back there. And localhost 3000 or 3001. Okay, so now you need to get your invoice list to be using the link tags. So open your invoices list. And you need to modify your LI to use a link tag in your invoices list. So compare your invoices list to my invoices list, and you're going to see that there's a link that's missing in yours that I have in mine.
Okay, thank you.
So I've got one favor to ask for you guys, other than filling out the weekly feedback form, which of course I will post as a homework assignment, but I'm going to dump in the chat in case you want to fill it out right now. But the other request that I have for you guys is when you have the light bulb moments, share them in the C3 chat. Not your back channel. I want to see those light bulbs going off. Share them in CIC student C3. I dumped the link. I should put that in the live stream. I dumped the link for the feedback both in the Zoom chat and in Slack live stream. I will share all of this code tomorrow morning, as well as the code that we did yesterday. So that is all accessible. That will be linked in the outlines. Of course, YouTube videos will be posted as always. You are rocking and rolling. You are welcome to get out of here. Enjoy your summer recess. Don't forget to schedule one-on-ones with me. If I am out of availability, there is a good chance that I will open up some availability on Thursday and Friday as well. I just need to figure out my schedule there a little bit, but I will probably open some slots there, and I will ping you guys in Slack when those slots are opened up in case you feel that you need additional slots. With that said, utilize Mel. Mel has been through this program. Mel knows all of this stuff inside and out. So use Mel, use your other TAs, use Ariel, use Karen, use Caitlin, right? Hit them up, use their Calendly links as well next week. The goal is not only to feel like you're making good progress on your capstone, it is also to make sure that you're understanding these concepts. The concepts are 10 times more important than getting the homework itself working. That's all I have for you. I'll stick around for a couple minutes in case anyone has questions. Otherwise, have an awesome break, and hopefully I'll see you all during one-on-ones.
So next week